are now walking in the Herc's world. You are now walking into Herc's world. Aye.
Discussion that we need to hear. Topics they be scared to touch. Parties say we do too much. Herc, I think they scared of us. Many mixes filled with hits. How you turned up like a jit. You are now in Herc's world. If you love her, had your chick. You are now in Herc's world.
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 And y'all know how we do. It's me, the Big Herc, and you tuned in to Herc's World, man. Season 6, episode 3. I'm just gonna be honest with y'all. I needed a week to recover from the week that was my 37th birthday and the anniversary of Herc's World. That's why y'all didn't get an episode last week. Because I was recovering. There was a lot of fun drinking. On my actual birthday, best friend took me out to a Mexican restaurant, and let's just say they had this thing called Fernando's Flights, and it's like 9 different things of margaritas, and we decided to split that. So I had like 4.5 margaritas, and then we thought it was a great idea to take shots, so we took shots. And then I got home. Somebody bought me a bottle of bourbon, so I drank that. I was drinking that. It was also Mother's Day, so we were celebrating, my mom and Bae. So yeah, I needed a break to come down from all that because that was a lot. So let me be the first to say thank y'all so much for all the birthday wishes and. For myself and Herc's World, Herc's World is officially 2, and I'm officially 3 years away from 40. If you call me old, you're mad at me. But that was last week. This week, we are talking mental health. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And y'all know I was not going to let the month of May end without doing something around mental health. Because we all know mental health is wealth here at Herc's World. And I believe in therapy. And if you don't got a therapist, you need to go get one because there's something wrong with your ass and you know it's something wrong with you. And go sit on somebody's couch and work through that shit. Because you can't keep using the excuse of so-and-so did this to me, so that's why I'm like this. Or my zodiac sign says this is how I act, and that's okay. It's not. Take your ass to therapy and get your shit figured out. So with all that being said, I got 2 dope therapists who gonna come on and kind of not necessarily get y'all together, but they gonna talk a little bit to you, and flex their therapist muscles. And I also have a special co-host today. First ever collab with another podcaster. So we'll see how that goes. So we got all that tuned, and we got all that coming up. So stay tuned for more Herc's World. We'll be right back.
Promote your brand with Herc's World Podcast. Explore our range of advertising packages with options starting at $25. For inquiries, please reach out to Herc at hercsworld24@gmail.com. That's HERCSWORLD24@gmail.com. Elevate your marketing strategy with Herc's World Podcast today.
Well, welcome back to Herc's World. I am your girlfriend's favorite podcast host, Big Herc. And if she says I'm not, that hoe a liar. Without further ado, I'm going to shut up because y'all have been listening to me for a minute. I'm going to let the guests of the panel introduce themselves. So come off mute, tell the people who you are.
Hi, everyone. This is your girl, Papa Talks with Koko. Long time no see, but guess what? I'm here. I am so honored to be a part of Herc's podcast and being able to collab with another podcast. It is so dope. I never had the opportunity to do this. I am very much so thankful. Thank you so much, and let's go.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Who's next? We're gonna come off mute. Tell the people who you are.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kiarra Charles. I'm a licensed professional counselor serving the states of Illinois as well as Missouri. So if you know anybody that's looking for a virtual therapist, I actually provide therapy services via this format. And this is pretty much my space. So this is what you will see happening in your therapy session. I will be happy to service you. I've been practicing a little bit over 5 years now, full time. Of course, my training exceeds way past that. So, hit me up. I'm super excited to be here and just to chop it up with this bunch of people. So let's get it cracking.
And last but certainly not least, I couldn't be the only guy on the panel, so I went to go get somebody else.
Hello, having me, Big Herc. My name is Gerald Vernell, and I hail from the great state of Memphis. Yes, Memphis is its own state. And I am a relationship expert, licensed professional counselor in the state of Tennessee. My business is Love Covers Anger. Love Covers Anger, where I do in-person and virtual for people who are having relationship problems, mental health problems, and we just try and get you to the best version of yourself so you can have the kind of life you want to lead. I have been in mental health since 97, doing a great many things, but counseling for the past, I would say, 13 or 14 years. So this is where I'm at, and let's get it cracking.
That is the panel, y'all. So let's dive right into it. I'm finna get messy right off the bat. Mr. Gerald, you a love coach, man. So let me ask you this. In your job, is it your job to keep people together? Or do you just be like, look, I'm going to give y'all the tools to make it work, and it's up to y'all to do the work to stay together or break up?
That part. Therapists do not try and put their values or what they think on to another person, another couple. A lot of people, it's their right to stay in a jacked up relationship. It's my job to show you the patterns, put a mirror up so you can see, hey, this is what it is. This is my piece in it. This is why it keeps happening. And you make the decision of whether you want to continue that or not. And then I give you the tools, if you do not, to try and help you with that. And then after a while, then we say, okay, we've made progress or we haven't made progress. And we reassess to either go on or just leave, because, when I become a part of the equation, it's like I'm in the relationship. And relationship work is something I'm very serious about. And if I could see couples that are not really working hard enough, if I'm doing more work than the couple, I'm gonna fire your ass. And that's just how it is. I'm just gonna say, hey, this is not working. You can continue to pay me. That would be awesome. But I'm letting you know the work that y'all doing is not getting you where you want to be. But y'all can keep paying me. Listen, man, I'm real about it. Okay, I'm from Memphis. I told you. So I break it down in such a way anybody can digest the kind of work that I do. So I'm not using a whole lot of jargon. I'm giving it to you pure uncut. So if you can't get it, it's generally because of a person's lack of motivation, or there's some extenuating circumstances going on that, the counseling room just can't account for.
Okay. Miss Kiarra, what is it like being a patient of yours?
Oh, that's a good question. I definitely think that I can provide a unique experience. Similar to Gerald, I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois, y'all. So I shoot straight. And I am a cursing therapist. I'm a therapist that listens to rap and hip hop. I mean, we outside, so I'm very much adaptable. I think that, I've had the pleasure of dealing with diverse populations, and very much so am curious about these different cultures and kind of the unique qualities of all these cultures. So I do find that I'm pretty adaptable. There's not many clients that come to me who I can't relate to in some way, and I'm always willing to learn more. And I think that that makes me a really unique therapist as well. I'm genuinely curious, and I don't think that I know everything. So I definitely believe that my clients are the experts on their lives, and that I'm just a helper, really. I'm here to help them along their path and really reveal some things that they probably already know, some tools that they probably already have. But my job is to sort of illuminate those things and help my clients kind of come to those realizations for themselves. So yeah, I would say that it's a pretty relaxed, chill environment. But when it comes time for me to drop some gems on you and remind you of why I have the degrees and the credentials that I have, she comes to life, and I'm able to say, yeah, so we're here to do the work, and here's what I have to say. So I think that my clients can really appreciate the balance of having that real talk with also that intellectual side where I can really provide them some helpful tools.
I like that. I like cussing therapists. Shout out to Dr. D. Berry, who's my therapist. And let me not say she be cursing, because she don't. She let me curse. So that's good enough for me. Koko, so first time hopping on as like a co-host. What's the gist of your podcast, and what made you be interested in hopping on Herc's World today?
Yes. Again, thank you. So as far as the details about my personal podcast, it's called Pop-Up Talks with Koko. And so my podcast, I give people all walks of life, no matter what you do, an opportunity to brand through my platform, through social media platform, as well as YouTube. And when I say because I always meet people, I meet a lot of people. And when I hear about their journey and what they have going on as far as business and whatever intensity they have going on in their lives, I'm like, I never heard of this, So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make my podcast the avenue, the door opener to get it out to the world from all walks of life. So that's the gist of my podcast, what I do with my podcast. And as far as what made me interest me to come aboard, I thought about, wait a minute, this is amazing. Dope. I never ever podcast like LinkedIn with no one else as far as another podcaster. And then I was like, I've been kind of dormant for a really, really long time. And I said, this would be a great avenue to kind of get back out there and touch bases, and then get back to what I love to do, what I enjoy doing. So that's basically the overall of it. I'm glad to be on the platform for you all. Yeah, so it's a great opportunity. That's the reason being.
Cool. So let's get a little more personal. And whoever wants to go first can go first.
Okay.
What got you guys into wanting to become a therapist?
I'll go. To be honest with you, and this is getting a little bit more personal, and this is kind of throughout my time in developing as a therapist, that I came to realize that I was very much what we may call a parentified child. So being pulled into adult conflicts at a very young age, being asked to give my opinions on adult topics, my parents would argue a lot. And so being sort of what we may call being triangulated in that. So I got two parents, and they're making me that third, where I'm coming in as a young person who doesn't even have the experience to be able to comment on these very adult things and serious topics. But they're asking me, what do I think about this? And I'm trying to, again, thinking about things that I'm not even developmentally able to think about. But I would actually get a lot of praise for that. oh, you're so mature. Oh, that's amazing that even at your age, you're thinking like that. And I think as a child, being praised for certain things, we're like a sponge. We soak that up and we learn, oh, this is something that I want to keep doing because it actually gives me a lot of praise and positive attention. And so, I would say, if I'm being honest and transparent, I truthfully think that it started there in terms of me, just being really interested in how I can help other people and try to help them fix their issues. I do think naturally as well, I was always intuitive, empathic as a young child, observant, and curious, again, just curious about the human experience and why do we act the way that we act. And I'm being raised in a city that's riddled with crime and trauma, substance abuse, all of these things where mental health issues is sort of kind of put in my face. I couldn't really ignore that something was happening, something more complex was happening. And I was curious about that. So I went on, and I remember taking like a psychology course in my senior year of high school. And at this time, I'm starting to apply to colleges, but I wasn't quite sure about what I wanted to do professionally. And the psychology course just kind of was like, wow, it was so interesting to me. It was eye-opening to me, and I said, I could do that. And so I went on to get a bachelor's degree in psychology. And I came to find that psychology, it seemed like it was actually leaning more towards a science, more towards a research-based thing. And I said, well, how do I get to a point to where I can actually talk to people like how they do it on TV? And so I went to a counselor at the college in my undergraduate program, and she was like, okay, you want to look into counseling, not psychology per se, but counseling in the graduate level. And so I actually went into it's the College of Education. They actually have a clinical mental health counseling track. And then what would be the opposite to that would be like a school counseling track. So I do have a master's of education, but it's in that specialty of clinical mental health counseling. And that's essentially my path. So it wasn't so like planned out. I just kind of followed my interests and it led me here. So
cool. What about you, Mr. Gerald?
Like Kiarra, my interest was piqued by my mother. As a teenager, she would give me things to read to give me insight about the mind, how people think, things like Dale Carnegie, How to Make Friends. She would give me Tony Robbins tapes, NLP tapes, all of those different things. And that began my curiosity, where I too took psychology up in school. But like she was saying, it did not prepare you to be a counselor. So I took an alternate route in psychology, and I got a non-clinical master's, but it still said psychology. So, I came back home after I finished grad school, and I just started my career in mental health. And, I was a case manager. I worked in management. I did you name it. And I got fired from all of those jobs. And I said, you know what? Let me try counseling. And I got on as a psych therapist at a local hospital. And I was like, this is easy. This is the easiest job I've ever had. So I was like, you know what? I can't leave this organization. I can't really be independent because I was seeing people come and go, and I was just like, I've been there, done that. So I said, let me go back to grad school, get a clinical master's, and I started that in like 2017, and I always knew it would be an extenuated process, so that's why I always put it off. But I said, I'm not getting any younger, so let me just go do this master's, do this clinical supervision, and go through that. And that whole process took 6 years. But I thank God for taking me that way, because now I have control of my schedule. I don't have to be beholden to a job. And this is something that, I want to spring off into other things. So basically that's the long and short of it.
Okay. So, with the concentration on relationships, what intrigues you to dig deeper into relationships as far as people go?
Well, a couple of things. The easy answer is, when I started this coaching business in 2017, I was just seeing individuals. And then in 2019, I started getting people who were having issues with their relationships. And at that point, I was still just doing it as a side hustle. And, I really wasn't taking it seriously. But when I looked at I can make double my money, I said, why am I going to let something like I don't know how to do relationship counseling stop me? So I did like a learn as you go approach. I did some research on how to actually counsel couples, what was the best evidence-based approach. And I think for the first 6 months, I know I screwed some couples up, but they didn't know it. But I was learning at their expense. And then I found the Godman approach, and I was like, this makes so much sense. And then I started because I was still in grad school, taking couples and marriage and family counseling. And my supervisor, my clinical supervisor, was a marriage and family therapist. So I got some good training on that, and I had some good tools behind me. And for me, being this relationship guy is almost like being in a studio audience of a Jerry Springer show. And because people in relationships are so interesting to me. I've seen the craziest couples. When I say crazy, I mean the most, I don't know, weirdest couples that you would see come through my door. And that right there, it just makes me want to, learn more, help them more. And that part of counseling for me is something that is not very hard for me, and I think that's what I have a niche for. So me choosing that lane is one where, okay, I distinguish myself, because when you go on Psychology Today, you'll see that everybody is doing everything. So if I'm the customer, how do I choose a person who's dealing with my specific interests? So if I choose and brand myself as that, then most people be like, okay, he's a relationship guy. Okay, maybe he can help me better than this guy can. So that's why.
Okay. Koko, you got a question. I got one too, but I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, I don't have a question per se, but I was just thinking on as far as the mental level, since we have some great experts on the platform with the mental health. Are there different levels of mental being treated for mental, or being able to counsel people dealing with mental issues? Are there different levels? Like for instance, maybe um, for per se, maybe from the abuse dynamic of it, or like you were just saying, Gerald, relationship dynamics. Are those different? Are there different entities under that mental health, the mind, that you all have met or have counseled or came across?
Kara, I'm gonna let you go because I just talked.
Well, if I'm interpreting your question correctly, Koko, it sounds like you're wondering, like, do we, like, Gerald specializes in relationships, and maybe some people specialize in trauma, and then there's these different facets of the work, and you're curious about, like, how you determine those different paths.
But just are there different, like, I don't want to say segments, but are those different ways people can cope with mental, like, or like, do you specialize in just in like I know I heard what you all stated, but are those ways where you specialize or you speak to those specific people based on whatever they're dealing with mentally?
Got you. And Gerald, I might need your help, Gerald. But the first thing that came to my mind was in terms of specialty, which I think is a really important conversation to have in terms of the different types of therapists and what the experiences levels are. So I was absolutely like so happy that Gerald mentioned Psychology Today. Psychology Today is a heavily popularized and heavily trafficked directory where people go, and if they Google Black therapists in the St. Louis area, typically my Psychology Today profile will pop up. And there's so many therapists who do so many different things. And in terms of the barriers that come up in terms of people being able to access the services that they need, I think that there is a lot of confusion around, well, what makes this therapist different from this therapist? And what makes, what do I actually need for my specific situation? And so I actually specialize in child trauma. So essentially, a lot of my experience, my background, I'm a rostered child trauma therapist in terms of TFCBT and ITCT. So there are different modalities. Gerald mentioned the Gottman modality in terms of relationship counseling. That's kind of like a gold standard level of experience to be able to work with a therapist who knows Gottman. For me, if you're looking for a child trauma focus, you will want to look for a therapist who has that experience and is likely able to show some level of education and training around child trauma. And so, yes, there are kind of different therapists who have chosen, maybe based on their interests or based on the different types of workplaces that they've been in, they've chosen these different specialty areas. And the treatment that you provide for a relationship situation is going to look different from the type of treatment that I will provide for somebody dealing with trauma. And so there are different approaches, and that therapist is likely going to take a different path in order to reach that need. And so, yeah, it can get a bit complicated, but I think that was a great question.
Yeah, and the piggyback on what Kiarra is saying, I just look at it from like a medical model. You go to your regular doctor, but if you have something going on with your ears or your nose, you're going to go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. So all doctors have a specialty, and those specialties have criteria or benchmarks that are saying that they've completed this level of training and that they do this. What the public has to do is be savvy enough to be able to know what specialties require what criteria. So if you're having relationship problems, you might want to look for a person who has a master's in marriage and family therapy, and they use the Gottman method or EF, emotion focused therapy or whatnot. If you have a lot of trauma, you might want somebody who does EMDR or trauma focused cognitive behavior therapy. But a lot of people just don't know that. So it's a real trial and error with them. But the internet is our friend. And if you seek that, you'll find what you need to look for. And YouTube has taught me a great many things. And if you just plug in, what kind of therapist do I need to look for to help me with my trauma? you'll get so many different hits and what kind of therapist to look for. So hopefully that answers your question, Koko.
Yes, it is.
Man, these folks are dropping fucking knowledge on y'all real fast and real heavy. We gonna go to break because y'all said y'all threw out a couple terms and things that I had questions about, and I kind of wanted to be messy. Just not gonna lie, I just feel like I can be messy because it's my show. So man, stay tuned. We'll be right back. More Herc World. Don't go nowhere.
Promote your brand with Herc World Podcast. Explore our range of advertising packages with options starting at $25. For inquiries, please reach out to Herc at hercsworld24@gmail.com. That's HERCSWORLD24@gmail.com. Elevate your marketing strategy with Herc World Podcast today.
Welcome back to Herc World. I am your girlfriend's favorite podcast host, Big Herc, and if she says I'm not, her twerk queen stink. I'm not gonna call her today. Yes, I am. I'm gonna call her hoe later. But anyway, so we're talking to two dope therapists, Gerald and Kiarra, and then we have a special co-host in Koko. We're talking mental health today on Herc World, man. Like I told y'all early in the show, stop playing like you don't need therapy because you do. Like you got unresolved issues, and stop blaming your zodiac sign because you're stupid or you hard headed. So Kiarra, I'm gonna pick on you first. Childhood trauma. So if I feel like because my mama whooped me when I was 7, and it changed the entire course of my life as far as I don't have feelings or I develop mom issues. Is that something that you commonly see, or is it like something that's like it's a process of okay, she whooped you at 7, but then she talked to you crazy at 9, and then she whooped you again at 11, and then she abandoned you at 12, but she came back at 15, and now y'all don't talk at all. Like, so is it like a gradual process, or just kind of like one isolated event caused you to have trauma forever?
Yeah. I love how you built that out, right? Because typically these things occur within context. And I'm kind of skipping forward in the case that we were to talk about Diddy and Cassie at some point today.
We are.
This ties in. So yes, you can have a what we may call an acute trauma, ACUTE, and that's a singular event that was extremely stressful to you. So when we are trying to determine whether or not something was traumatic versus something just being stressful, we will want to be looking at those factors that you mentioned, Herc, in terms of it derailed your whole life. It derailed pretty much your ability to cope and to overcome that particular traumatic experience. And so that's when we say, okay, this is looking a bit more traumatic rather than just being a stressful moment in your life and in your childhood. And so within the context of it all, we may be able to build it out into a more complex trauma situation. So we might have an acute trauma that was just one singular event, and that's where we focus our efforts at. Or it may be within a context of multiple experiences that happened throughout this person's life, the way that this person internalized and was able to digest these experiences and to cope and to overcome the stressors related to that. And so then we are getting in the territory of a more complex traumatic situation. And I do think that oftentimes when we are, kind of sitting in front of a client who presents with, oh, this is the traumatic event that really impacted me, once we dig into the story more, we do sort of gain insight oh, it sounds like not only that event was traumatic, but there was something else that happened down the road that complicated that for you even further. So I think that, that's where that good therapeutic work comes in. Our clients can present with, well, this is what I know really impacted me, and this is what I think all of my stress is pretty much stemming from. And then it's on the therapist to kind of develop that story, dig deeper, and then you get into the context. So I mentioned Cassie and Diddy because right now we've kind of got this video that surfaced and it's showing us one event, one day, and this happened. However, as a therapist, I think we're often thinking about the context that allows an event like that to occur. What came before, what came after, what was occurring during that event as well. So yes, trauma can be really complicated. And you mentioned that singular incident of the child being whooped, and is that kind of enough to develop into trauma? Yes, it could, but likely there's more to that actually creates that stage for a traumatic reaction to occur. If that answers your question.
It does. Gerald, I'm gonna give you a different scenario, just because you relate your relationships. All right, so
Put me in the box. That's
so
just for the brand.
well, hey, we're gonna test it out. We'll take Cassie and Diddy, for the simple fact that Kiarra just brought up Cassie and Diddy. As a relationship coach, if you were there, or if they came to you back in 2016 after this traumatic experience, she basically tells you in confidence, hey, I was trying to get away. He knocked me upside my head. Allegedly, I couldn't leave. And he's just, and people have for years have kind of just said like Diddy is kind of like this master manipulator. Like he'll put on a good show for the cameras, put on a good show for people. But if you look close enough, his evil side, as they say, has allegedly always been there. What advice would you give that couple if they came to you and saying, hey, how do we make our relationship work? Or do we need, like, what advice would you give? Well, let's not say make it work. What relationship advice would you give that particular couple in that situation?
All right. Well, I've had a number of Diddy and Cassie's come through my office.
Okay.
So that's pretty black and white. First of all, I'm not going to counsel a couple that has ongoing abuse, okay? Because that's almost like me co-signing it. So you need to go to your safe place, and you need to go get some help. It's not my job to snitch, but I will advise that person that was allowed, that was broken. So if you feel like you need to address that, do that. But you need to get some help, and you need to get some help, because both of y'all are not healed. Y'all are two people that have a fractured sense of self. So they would need to be in counseling for a period of time, maybe 6 months to a year. Okay. And I wouldn't even think about counseling them until they've had 6 months of individual counseling themselves, and that would be ongoing with couples counseling. So no, I would advise them to really get this abuse stopped. If that means separating, do that. But I'm not going to again put my values on them, but as a standard of practice, and when ethics are involved, I have to let them know what it is from my standpoint, and I'm very clear on my ethics with couples.
Koko, what you got?
That's great. No, I love that feedback because even with you as well as Kiarra and Gerald, I love how Gerald stated that basically I'm not going to indulge or even put myself in that capacity to even provide therapy for you due to the significance of that particular issue. Um, they are, I like when you stated too, Gerald, as far as has past hurt issues, I'm not gonna be opinionated. I don't know like Kiara was saying, I don't know what happened prior, not taking up for no one, not justifying anybody, or based on what people have said here and there. But I like how he's coming in as far as just, hey, look, we're gonna start right here. You go do what you need to do, and you go do what you need to do, and then hey, you all need to come back so I can be able to, provide you all with some with some major feedback. But I do want to kind of piggyback to the main topic of mental health. Because like I do like what you said as well, is coming, you believe it's coming from past hurt and issue. When I heard when Herc reached out and told me about mental health, I I'm a huge advocate of mental because I believe everything starts in the mind. And a lot of things can come from the past or like Kiarra childhood or how somebody's being disciplined from the parents, or maybe the parents discipline this particular child like this based on their past hurt or anger or some sort. But mentally, um, when I hear mental health, what are you all's both feedback, as well as you heard, on, because I'm a firm believer everything starts in the home, as far as how people was raised or the atmosphere they was brought up in or some sort. What are you all thought as far as when a person have mental issues? Do you all believe it's does it really start from home or what they're seeing, their upbringing? Because before they can get counsel, someone can get counsel or get therapy. Do you all ever go back and say, hey, what, even though when they go to doctors and they're diagnosed or examined and so forth, do you all go kind of deeper to see how did this come about? Like, where did this come from? You know what I mean? Do you all kind of get that one-on-one, just ask those probing questions when it comes to mental health before you dive into it?
Great question. This is kind of an ongoing, and Gerald knows this. This is like that ongoing conversation and debate in terms of mental health, where we ask, like, is it nature or is it nurture? Nature versus nurture. The nature is the questions around, is there something happening neurologically? Is there sort of a chemical imbalance happening? Is that kind of the nature, the natural part of the mental health, or is this more of a nurture? Is this what was socially conditioned? Is this something that this child learned and picked up on, or was it cultivated within the home, like you said, Koko? So I think that those are kind of one of those ongoing mysteries. But ultimately, when we're doing a thorough assessment and intake to be able to really understand our clients, we are asking questions around development. Kind of like, I've worked a lot with children, and so children and teenagers. And so a lot of questions around, like, Mom, what was your pregnancy like? Was there any, did this child meet all of their developmental milestones? Was there any substance abuse while pregnant? Things like that. That's me trying to kind of tease apart if we are dealing with something that's purely kind of the nurturing component and what happened in the social environment, or it might just be some underlying medical issue, or something that would require maybe a brain scan, or would it require that kind of that more medical provider is let in on this. And then that's where we really want to expand the team, and we might refer them for these more medical based services, even if we're curious and we kind of want to rule out some things, like, oh, I'm wondering if there was a traumatic brain injury at this point. And Mom is like, well, we never quite followed up on it. I might make a referral to try to get at some of those, possible medical influences. But I do think ultimately we kind of see that there's probably more like a cocktail involved. There's a mixture of these different dynamics at play, and usually that social environment is going to have a big influence on where this person is from a mental health perspective. So I think ultimately we do kind of deal with those pieces, but you're right. You might need to ask some questions about, is there anything else outside of the home that could have influenced this?
And just to piggyback on what Kiarra is saying, when you're doing a full psychosocial assessment, part of that for me that's crucial is evaluating the mental status to see if there's anything that would preclude them from receiving uh, good therapy. Like if there's, an altered sense of reality, they're hearing voices, they're seeing things, or they're manic. Um, they that's not going to be a good outcome. So we need to really maybe refer them out, because I'm an outpatient therapist now. And then, as you get into the developmental part, you're going to ask what the relationship was like with their mother, with their father, to see what is their attachment style. And after you do that, since I'm this relationship person, I give a personality assessment just to see, is this person narcissistic? Are they borderline? Are they schizotypal? Because once I get the proper diagnoses, now I can choose an evidence-based protocol to treat that person. I think sometimes a lot of therapists don't go in depth, so a lot of their interventions are real hit and miss. But when you can sit down with a person and let a person know, hey, based on the data that you've provided me in this assessment and the last couple of assessments, looks like you have bipolar disorder. And not only that, you're borderline and you have schizotypal. So, and then you break down, what does that look like? You're not just going to give the person the label, because you want to normalize it and let that person know, because I know what you have now. There is hope that we can put a plan of treatment together that should work, because you're not the first person on the planet with these labels. So that's what assessment for me and treatment planning looks like for me.
Repeat that word one more time.
What's that, Big Herc?
Repeat that word, the big word that I didn't. It's schizo. What?
Schizotypal.
Okay, break that down. Break that down, because I want, like, I'm intrigued by. I've never heard the word before, so I'm intrigued by what it means.
Well, schizotypal people are people that are very, very guarded. Okay, they feel like they don't fit in. Um, they always feel suspicious about people, and they're kind of awkward. And it's not episodic; it's persistent. They're like this in the home, at work, um, everywhere. Okay. Um, and you can Google this to get more information. I'm just giving you a general breakdown. Um, but yeah, that's schizotype.
Dropping fucking knowledge, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thoroughly impressed, because I've never heard that word before, and now I'm gonna go do research and see what it means. I think the original question. What was the original question, Coco? Because I was so intrigued by answers, I forgot.
Just as far as mental health, when when it comes to the person mental, does it start from home? Does it start the upbringing, the atmosphere, whom they was around? Like as far as like you were saying, as far as development, how did it come about? Because Because when I hear mental health, I'm immediately coming up with, in my mind, I'm thinking about, it starts in mental, your thinking, your thought process. So if you're having a mental health crisis or you're having mental health issues, it's mental, then it begin to affect your health. That's how I kind of, in my mind, I just kind of understand and comprehend mental health, which is two different words, of course, but does it start from home, your upbringing, when you get out in there, like socially, as she said as well, socially, how does that kind of develop and kind of perform? Because I've seen a lot of people, they can be good and they, like for instance, someone lose a family member. They good, they can lose somebody close to them. And then, we see, oh my God, they lost their mind. They did this,
Kanye West.
you know? So, it's so many dynamics, relationship. I'm with this person treated me great, wine and dine, and then just start abusing me, Like, what did I do something, or with this person already has something, some unhealed or some prior issues, to come and attack child abuse, that, a parent going, giving them everything they want in the house. I'm just using examples, spoiling them, discipline correct. They go to school, they start to get bullied on. Then is that tainting their mental, capabilities? So it's just a lot of ways to look at mental health. I'm not a mental health expert, but I believe it starts in the mind. And it's really, really important, especially in our community, but in society as a whole, is how I look at it. But the question is where it starts at,
So I think it's a combination of both. I feel like it's a combination of, how you were brought up, your environment, the people you're around, and then the flip side is, you as a person. I do feel like that, your upbringing does kind of shape who you are and the type of person you're going to be. But so I do believe that, but on the flip side, just because you're raised in this 2-parent household with, mom, dad, the perfect family, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to reproduce that. But on the flip side, just because you grew up with just your mom or your dad doesn't necessarily mean you can't be capable of a 2-parent household. So I do feel like it's a combination of both. I think it's more upbringing than anything, just because, at that tender age of, toddler, at the top, to me, the toddler phase is where you kind of like develop, or you're the most sponge like, if that makes sense. And if you see certain things or you're treated a certain way, you just kind of build upon that, and then you just become you start to become the person that you're going to be. Not saying you can't change, but I just feel like as a toddler, that's when that toddler to kind of like elementary school is when you kind of are the most spongiest, and you're more adapt to changing and learning different things. So that kind of shapes who you are going to be in junior high, high school, college, and unless something happens. So I just feel like it's a combination of both.
I have another question. So, as far as mental health, do you all, with the experts, counseling, and therapists, do you all believe that in our society that we are quickly um, to provide a medicine as a solution versus having those talks? Because I like, do you all believe that there's basically a quick fix? Because I feel like people having a quick fix, or they got a mental issue, they need some medicine, they need to be on some medicine, or do you believe that it can be resolved or a solution can be provided with, just a talk, or it depends on the person? Because I know it's different levels with mental, even when you stayed in Kiarra, the brain function, it's so deep. Mental health is just really, really deep. But the reason I asked that question, because I love Jesus, and I just feel like sometimes doctors are so quick to just give a quick fix with medicine. instead of, people just communicating and talking to actually see deeper what's really going on. Because even when Gerald said, hey, you go that way, go get healed. He's not saying, hey, go see a doctor, like go deal with whatever issue, whatever past trauma that led up to whatever happened. Because, of course, we don't know. But the question mainly, do you all believe it's a quick fix with medicine or with counseling or therapy? What's you all's intake on that?
This is kind of going back to your earlier question too, Koko, kind of about the different specialty areas. And so I think typically us as talk therapists, we do believe in the power of the therapeutic relationship and our ability to really help our clients overcome their issues pretty much through the tools that we provide as therapists, and again, through the relationship that we deal with our clients, which is something that we're taught that therapeutic relationship is really a healing agent in itself, being able to connect and really gain that trust and kind of work through it together. So that's sort of that, like, we're talk therapists. Now you do have psychologists who actually go to school for mental health, but it's from a more medical perspective, where they do kind of learn about the different, mental diagnoses and disorders, and they attribute those things to needing some sort of medicine. Now, I think all of us can agree from a mental health provider perspective that the perfect combination is going to be that talk therapy plus the medical medicine assistance if needed. And so typically, I think these psychologists do a pretty good job of saying, I'm going to provide you this medication, and I recommend that you go see a therapist like Gerald or like Kiarra in combination. And so that would be what's most recommended. Not everybody needs medicine, and I think that that's actually a good conversation around capitalism and around the pharmaceutical companies, and kind of how, as a society, there is a bit of a benefit monetarily to, kind of kicking out these medications. So I think that it's a good kind of critique for people to have if they're like, do I really need this medicine? And really being curious about why it's being prescribed. But I think, in some cases, medicine is necessary. In some cases, it's not. So I really do encourage people to do their research, ask their questions, and, not completely just negate it and say, no, I won't do it at all if it's needed from a medical perspective. But I think it's okay to be a bit skeptical and be really asking those important questions around what is the medicine for, and, being curious.
I've worked on a psych ward for going on 13 years. So I've worked with psychiatrists who prescribe psych meds, and the gold standard, and this is a question that you can kind of answer a couple of different ways. Like Kiarra was saying, is psych med and therapy, and that's just based on the level of severity that you find yourself in. Okay. But therapy all by itself has been proven to be as good or better than psych meds by themselves. So I'm a proponent to adding psych meds if it is something that psych therapy doesn't do too well with, i.e., the schizophrenias and the bipolars. Because if a person thinks that they're being followed by the FBI, or they're seeing green men on the wall, or they're manic and they're talking 1,000,000 miles a minute and they're doing impulsive things, well, that person needs some Depakote or some Abilify if we're going to have a positive outcome. and you might need to go to a psych ward before you come see me. But that's where good assessment comes in. So you know if these problems fit inside your office, or maybe you need to refer out and have somebody else attached to this team. I think people that their first entry into mental health is their primary care doctor, which is not a mental health person. So what are they gonna give you? They sure ain't gonna give you 15 minutes of counseling because they got 100 people in their waiting room. They're gonna give you some Zoloft, some Ativan, some Xannies, or whatever, and say come back. And when that ain't working, maybe a year later they might say, "Have you thought about seeing a therapist?" And that's how that goes.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, they are dropping fucking knowledge. I hope y'all are listening. Like the gems. The gems that are being dropped here today, you can hear somewhere else, but why would you do that? It's Herc's world, man. We're gonna go to break, take some time, get you something to drink, do something else. We'll be right back.
Promote your brand with Herc's World Podcast. Explore our range of advertising packages with options starting at $25. For inquiries, please reach out to Herc at hercsworld24@gmail.com. That's HERCSWORLD24@gmail.com. Elevate your marketing strategy with Herc's World Podcast today.
Welcome back to Herc's World. I am your girlfriend's favorite podcast host, Big Herc. And if she says I'm not, she's probably a minor. And if y'all don't know what that means, you haven't been listening to Kendrick and Drake. It's shame on you because Kendrick is kicking Drake's ass. But that was last week. Nobody dropped the recent diss track. You heard it here first. Kendrick has the song of the summer. Not Like Us is going to be played at every cookout, every barbecue. And if you a petty person like me, you should play push-ups, then play Not Like That, then play Family Matters, and then play Not Like Us again. And that way, just keep the Kendrick in rotation. And it's not that I'm not a Drake fan. I just, like Kendrick's version a little bit better. Judge your mama. Anyway, we're talking mental health here on Herc's World today, man. Speaking of mental health, let's go there. And we're gonna tie it back into Kendrick and Drake. Why? Just because they still kind of hot right now. The question that I'm gonna